How it started, how it's going. A ruined mansion co-opted by goblins. An entryway full of spike and pit traps. A hallway featuring a gauntlet of arrow traps. Goblins love their traps. A grand ballroom full of rubble and a fallen chandelier. A bathhouse used as a water source by the goblins. Some branching paths to provide player choice. A game room on the left. A sitting room and dining room on the right. All completely trashed by the goblins. A kitchen and servant quarters, granting access to the part of the ballroom covered in rubble. Bedrooms and latrines. This is where the bulk of the goblin forces are. No goblin stronghold would be complete without secret tunnels and secret passages with which to ambush the player characters. This has been the ruined mansion of the goblin. Tune in next time for their sworn enemies in the kobold stronghold. Dungeon a Day, Zone 2, the Kobold Stronghold. Entering in, you find what appears to be a long hallway, but in fact are two artificial walls constructed by the kobolds, and when anyone steps on the center of the room, the walls will fall one and then the other, dealing massive bludgeoning damage. The door at the end of the room is a false door. Kobolds atop scaffolding will pelt you with firebombs before escaping the room through secret exits. One will run around through another secret door and lock the door you came in through, and if you don't exit the room as soon as it catches fire, you will be locked in. Those same kobolds will be taking cover behind half walls in the next room to pelt with arrows anyone that comes through the door. If you try to charge them, you'll fall into their pit traps. A booby-trapped storeroom. A barracks room untouched by the kobolds inviting you to stay the night. I'm sure you can guess what would happen if you did. If you chose to go the opposite direction from the entryway, you will find the room the guards did their debriefings before shifts. Left mostly untouched by the kobolds and probably empty when you find it, though you can roll a random encounter if you wish. And the reason that room was left untouched was to encourage entrance into the adjoining room, an armory where all the equipment has been subtly broken to fail under stress. Next is a training hall that the kobolds actually use, so they haven't broken or trapped anything. And below it, the guard captain's office, where the kobold chief likes to sit during peace times, so it's also mostly unmolested. Except for a few booby-trapped books, which he can't read anyway. Next, arrow slits line the walls of this noticeably funnel-shaped room, and if you make it past the barrage of arrows, you'll have to contend with rows of kobolds 3 to a line, armed with spears, pikes, and crossbows, all with pack tactics. After that gauntlet, you'll find that the stronghold's water source and latrines and storeroom have been converted into a mostly defenseless kobold camp. Thus concludes Day 2 of Dungeon a Day. Tune in next time for the cultic hideout, the Sunken Desecration. Day 3 of the Dungeon a Day project, the Sunken Desecration. Once a church, now like the rest of this dungeon lies beneath the earth, and its only congregants are cultists. Entering the dungeon, as many cultists as there are party members will have the drop on you, attacking from behind pillars with warlock magic. Next, a hallway that tees off serves as the junction of most of this dungeon. A dining hall used by the cultists and once used by monks. If the party is desperate, they could probably barricade the door and use this room to rest in, but the cult is fairly active and probably heard you coming. A kitchen with still edible food is booby-trapped for anyone who wants to raid their stores. Here, the party will meet a cultist who has gone mad. He's not violent unless attacked. He has filled the room with mirrors and scrawled on the walls the words, I am, am I, with a question mark. He has the key to progress forwards and must be convinced to relinquish it or take it by force. Next is a storage room with a puzzle box to hide most of the best goods. And in the room beside, an inexplicable eye stares up from the floor, connected to the walls by some sort of membrane of flesh. It will cause madness in whoever stares back into its gaze. The room at the end of the hall has confession booths and prayer altars, as well as a holy symbol in mosaic on the floor. The holy symbol has been desecrated.
Crawling up from a crack in the ground are two long arms that will grab and drag down anyone who gets too close. On the other side is a treasure and a secret passage to the boss room. The boss is an obviously possessed cultist who wields far more power than a being of his ilk ought to have. He is backed up by other cultists who attack from behind pillars, as he stands proudly on the dais. Thus concludes day 3. Tune in next time as we descend below the church to the restless catacombs below. Beneath the sunken desecration lies the restless catacombs. It would be tempting to fill these halls with the undead, but instead I've concocted a new horror. The twisted and malformed gray folk, disproportionate limbs, and skin that's never seen the sun. These cruel creatures torture for sport, and have filled these halls with wicked death traps for any who would wander into them. The first room sets the tone with spinning blades of death. Above it, the floor has completely caved away, with only a rickety bridge missing planks stretching across, and a few feet of space on the sides from which gray folk will shoot arrows at the players crossing the bridge. Down the hall to the right, a blade spins along a track in the floor. Solve a puzzle to access the loot. 3 bowls with markings on the stands behind them, and a large pile of stones at their base. Have a go at it in the comments. After the rope bridge, our first truly devious trap appears. Looking into the room, it appears that there are 9 pressure plates, each aligned with one of 3 arrow slits in the walls. But upon stepping on the floor around the pressure plates, you'll discover that the arrow slits are actually hoses for poisonous gas to enter the room. And the pressure plates are not pressure plates at all, but safe zones, and everything else will push down and trigger the poisonous gas. The key to progress forwards is found in this room. This long straight hallway is perfect for an Indiana Jones style rolling boulder trap. A hub room connecting a lot of optional content, a secret path going forwards, and the standard way forwards requiring the key in the previous room. Through the secret door, there are 3 platforms accessed by a ladder with rope bridges in between, from which enemies will fire down upon anyone who enters the room. In the hallway past the hub room, there's a wandering patrol and a tripwire trap that will sound an alarm and drop a cage to slow the player's escape. In the adjoining hallway, there are large crevices broken into the ground that must be leapt over, and in the adjoining room, there are fire spurt traps in one and spike traps on pistons in the other, as well as a key. In the hall beyond, there are a series of pit traps on alternating sides. A room with deep crevasses that must be jumped over in order to access the secret cave system or the door to the large hallway. The hallway in question has a large crevasse that must be leapt over or circumnavigated in one of 2 ways. One of the means of circumnavigation leads to a gauntlet of traps and ascending pillars to a treasure chest above. Across from that room is a locked room requiring the key in that earlier passage. Inside, a buzzsaw cuts across the path, and behind it is a puzzled mechanism to unlock the boss room. Another bowl and more stones. Have a go in the comments. The boss room features a shattered floor with edges that you can walk along and attack the boss from across the crevasse. The boss will grant the key to unlock the door forwards. Alternatively, navigate the creature-infested stalactite-filled caves, hidden behind a false wall across the dungeon. Thus concludes the restless catacombs. Beyond them is the haunted Inquisitorium. Day 5. The haunted Inquisitorium. The ghosts of heretics and clergy alike haunt these halls. As you enter, the undead mill about, but will not attack you unless you pass very close to them. A baptismal font still bubbles out holy water and will cure you of most ailments. A large room contains holding cells and one room used for guarding the prisoners. The cells contain ghosts of heretics. The ghosts in the cells are non-violent and serve as NPCs, but the ghost in the control room will fight you to protect the key, thinking it's still guarding its post after all these years.
Connected to the large room are a series of smaller rooms, mostly offices and storage rooms, and populated by ghosts of the clergy. There is a button to unlock the control room on the other side, where the guard is located. There is a combat encounter where one ghost will pop in and out of rooms, ambushing you and then disappearing through the walls. There is an optional side quest where you can bring reconciliation to the two parties, and if you do, the boss gets significantly easier. A series of interrogation rooms connected by hallways filled with magical darkness and a shadow that will ambush the party like the ghost before, lowering their strength and crippling them for the boss fight to come. Across the hall there is a locked door to a crematorium, and one of the three entrances to the boss fight. It's accessed by one of the two buttons in the shadowy hall. The other is a trap that will further weaken the party for the boss fight to come. There is a key in one interrogation room and a secret passage in the other, for a total of 3 ways to access the boss chamber. The boss in question is an extremely powerful wight, the reanimated corpse of an arch heretic who commands his religious affiliates unless you facilitated reconciliation between them and the clergy, in which case you'll only fight the wight. Thus concludes the Haunted Inquisitorium. Tune in next time for the Guarded Reliquary, full of priceless artifacts and celestial magic. Today on the Dungeon a Day Challenge, the Guarded Reliquary. Relics of priceless value and ancient origin are guarded by celestially empowered angel statues that come to life if you try to take the trophies they protect. In the first room, the angel will attack unprovoked, introducing the players to the threat, and you to a quirk of this dungeon. In order to prevent the constant angel statue battles from getting monotonous, I created a random table to generate that statue's abilities and even its armor class and hit points. Feel free to steal it as it's compatible with most D20 systems, with a little tweaking for balance. And the reason this came about is because of the random table I created to decide the content of the dungeon. This was that random table, except I used a D20 instead of a D10 and rolled something like 16 combats. I wrote in my notes, "This dungeon hates you, I'm sorry." But to keep the combats fresh, I created that previous table to make them interesting. I also rolled a high number of secret doors and decided to interpret the secret doors as nooks holding loot, which led to the employee of the loot creation table that I rolled off of. Something like this can be very useful for giving out magical items that will surprise your players but also feel thematically fitting for the area you're in. These are a few fruits of that labor: a curse-casting sword, a blessed shield, a radiant hammer and defender's ring, a cleansing cloak, defender's longsword, evil-slaying longsword, and radiant dagger. The dungeon has 3 routes of traversal, but those routes will have you zigzagging back and forth to find keys to unlock the many locked doors. Thankfully, each line of rooms has 1 key to unlock the entire line. This was to save time and headaches, but also to lock off sections and force early exploration of the level. There are also mechanisms and secret doors that can be employed, but it will not completely remove the searching for keys, and therefore keep the exploration high. Player agency is instilled through this, but as also in that all of the items the angels protect are optional, so the dungeon is as hard and as rewarding as you want it to be. Thus concludes the Guarded Reliquary. Tune in tomorrow for the Scriptorium of Souls, and have one more random table for your troubles. This one for the creation of the layout of the dungeon. Mine was made by the month, but yours can be devised by dice. Dungeon a Day 7, the Scriptorium of Souls. The eldritch horror seeds that were sown in the sunken desecration have produced fruit. In the paper-making room where pulp is cut, boiled, and pressed into sheets, something else is being made. Horrible abominations are being spat out of fleshy mouths in the corners of the room, and will continue to spawn until the mouths are destroyed. Secret rooms hide loot inside puzzle boxes, and the key to progress is trapped. The latrines and the nearby bedchambers have been completely taken over by the evils. The eye causes madness, the mouth will bite, and the hands will grasp. In the leather tanning room where the book covers are made, the soul of a monk has turned into a banshee, and wails lamenting the fall of his scriptorium. Past the wool storage room is the thread weaving room where the bindings are made. The thread has been stretched across the walls and now create a problem with traversal. The adjoining chamber features hands that will grasp and hold you to the maddening eye until you escape them. And if you enter through the hub room side, a mouth almost the size of the room will chomp at you until it is defeated or jumped over. The shadows have not depth, but you will fall forever if they swallow you. In the ink-making room, there's another combination of horrific evils. The hands will grab you and pull you to the mouth that will devour. And one of the abomination creatures has been trapped in a storage room, unwittingly guarding a puzzle box of treasure. There's another puzzle box in the opposite room, and in the room past the ink-making station, 2 large vats of ink begin to fill the room. Finally, past a hallway of hands lies the boss fight in a scriptorium. Entering the scriptorium, you will find ghosts trapped in chairs and forced to write blasphemies over the texts of Scripture. They are bound by enchanted chains. There is one more phantom keeping them there. It will prove a great threat to the characters, but if you break the enchanted chains holding the ghosts, they deal damage to the enemy before moving on. One of the things that provides player agency in this dungeon is the amount of optional content. The only necessary rooms are the ones holding the key, the three buttons to open the route to the scriptorium. Other than that, it's purely up to the players to decide what they want to explore. And of course, there are a handful of secret routes that can be discovered with careful search. Thus concludes the Scriptorium of Souls and the first floor of the dungeon. Tune in next time as we descend down into the ancient ruins of the fallen empire far below.